Okay, here we go. I had a little experience. It was kind of it wasn't really scary, but it was definitely different and kind of worrisome. But I was at the airport and I was really wanting to go, and it was getting late, and it was foggy. I mean, it was really foggy. And I got thinking, there's nobody coming in this little airport that's going to be on instruments or anything, so I'm going to go and get above the fog, and I want to go to get me some breakfast. So I did. I cranked up and lined her up and took off and put her in a hard climb. Tried to go down there straight up. And I went and went and went. And all of a sudden there's a plane or something. I saw something right beside me. Woo! And I hit the controls and went to the left real hard and then looked back, and it was my shadow on top of the fog. The fog was like a sea there. When I got above it, blue skies, and it left me a shadow. So that was one of them. And then I had another one with Julie here, and we was going to Belgrade, and she'd been flying quite a bit, and I had just put me a couple of little blocks over on the floor, and I'd put my feet up on them so I wouldn't be hitting the pedal without even thinking, the rudder pedals. So everything was cool, and she flew it over to Belgrade, and it's a long strip, little narrow strip. And we got there, and there's a pretty strong crosswind. And she went to go in, and when closer to the ground she got, I told her, I said, Julie, maybe you ought to let me land this thing in this crosswind. So she said, okay. So I took over the stick and banked it in there and started to head in the wind. And when I got down there, I tried to point it in the wind, and I couldn't turn it. And it's really shocked me. And then it dawned on me, my feet were still on them little blocks, and they wasn't on the rudder pedals. So just before we got to the ground, I got it turned, and we sat down, and it wasn't a real pretty landing.
No, but it tipped my direction.
It tipped in her
As
direction.
always.
She gets excited about that. But anyway, we made it, and it was very enjoyable. And that was one of the times. We went to another flight one time for breakfast to, where did we go?
Okeechobee.
Okeechobee. And it was foggy. Oh, it's foggy. And of course we had GPS, stuff like that, but still, you'd see holes in the fog and look down and you could see the ground because we don't fly real high. And every now and then we'd drop down on one of them holes and look around and go back up. And then when we got to the airstrip, you couldn't
Well,
find
when we were flying by Okeechobee, though, the fog was real pretty because you could see the water down through the fog.
Yes, it was. It was really pretty. And there's so many sights you see up there that you never see when you're on the ground. And you really shouldn't be flying in fog like that. People like us don't pay no attention to that. We just fly when we want to and as far as we want to. And
Well, as we were getting close to the airport, though, because we did have radio control.
yeah, we had radio
And
contact.
We'd hear the other pilots as they were taking off, and when you're in the solid fog and you see an airplane come up out of the fog when you're getting close.
But with the gyro, you can go down below the fog, just get above the fence and ease it in there and land on the taxiway if you want to. That's the advantage of a gyro. You can land at zero ground roll and stay out of trouble. And that's why we fly low a lot of times. And one time we had a problem on flying low. We flew over a subdivision that wasn't developed yet. And when they're not developed and don't have signs up and power lines, we'd like to get down there about signpost high and about 80 mile an hour and do the cul-de-sacs and the sharp corners and just play. And we'd be back in there, and there's a bunch of people been four-wheeling in there, and they had a motorhome and a trailer, and it was full of four-wheelers, and they was coming out. So I flew down real low by them just to see what kind of stuff they had on the trailer. Well, I didn't want to land in front of them. I mean, we thought about landing there, but we
Well,
didn't.
back up, because I said I said, there's power lines, and you said, yeah, we just lost power. And that's when you went over the power lines, and we were flying down the grass, and he was getting set up to land it, and I said, there's a tree. And that's when he didn't want to land over in front of the motorhome and go.
Yeah, the motorhome was on the pavement, but an ideal place to land. But I was afraid he'd run over me, didn't see me or something. So we was, like she said, we'd come underneath the power lines, and we was headed for a good stretch of grass. I knew I could land it. And then she said, there's a tree. It was a dead cabbage tree with no top in it, just like a big tall post, and we was lying dead on it. So right then I had to exchange airspeed for altitude. So I took away my airspeed and used it to go over it. When I on the other side, then I had to trade altitude for airspeed. So I had to point the nose just down there straight down to keep the rotors going, and then pull it up just as we got to the ground. And it worked out, and we landed pretty good.
And I was looking straight out sideways at the camper, and they were looking at us as we were landing. So we got on the ground, checked everything out, switched the fuel pumps. He rode it back up on the road, and we took off and flew back to LaBelle, but we stayed where we could land it if we had to.
You always want to be prepared.